Hey, good afternoon, folks. My name's Tim Richardson, and I have Dustin Bray over here on the side. I'll introduce him again in a second once we get everybody in here. While we're waiting a few minutes, or well, probably a few seconds, go ahead and find the chat area. That'll be fun. Just say, once you find it, it's like a little speech bubble. Find that, and if you could, just type in the city that you're watching from or listening from. That'll be awesome. And that'll be actually the area throughout this event that you can type in questions. So we want questions. This is going to be interactive. We have our 5 big buying mistakes that we're going to help you avoid. And but you're going to also be able to ask questions, and we'll work those in as we get down through the topics. There may be a point where just say, hey, we're getting to warranties and service contracts number 5 or something like that. But for the most part, we want to help you out, and we're excited to have you in here. So let's take a look and see. We've got Butch in Arizona. Nice. Glendale. We have Penny in Corpus Christi, Texas. We just opened a new location down in Dodge City, Texas. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Well, it's actually warm down there. It's cold up here where we are. We're out of Ohio. So Cindy in California, Dennis in Philly. Greetings. Wilson in El Paso, Lindsay in Colorado. Just met a guy yesterday picked up he was in Aurora, Colorado, picked up his Rockwood yesterday. That was pretty cool. Drove all the way up with his friend and took it home for the family. Christine in California, Cheryl in Massachusetts. And we have people all over. Lisa in Knoxville, Tennessee. We were just took an RV trip to Nashville, not too far from you, last week for our big show. And had a lot of fun with that. Class C. Craig in Island. So greetings, guys. Lots of people, and we're excited to help out. Wanted to introduce again Dustin Bray. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys.
Has been selling a lot of RVs and helping a lot of folks find the perfect match, but in that process has seen a lot of interesting stories, heard a lot of interesting stories from folks that have either been taken advantage of or almost got taken advantage of, and been able to help them out. And so a lot of our content has been gathered through sales folks like Dustin, who've been here. Our team, for the last 20 some years has been at RV Wholesalers, has gathered all this information, gave it to us. And in fact, the owner said, hey, Dustin and Tim, can you guys take this to the masses, because we can only sell a couple thousand RVs in a year compared to the 600,000 that are being sold. So let's educate everybody, even if it doesn't make sense for them to buy from us. But so that's our goal, and we have fun doing it. So let's jump right in.
Dustin,
absolutely.
Let's go.
The slides here, and shoot. I didn't tell them about my first RV.
Story time. Yep.
So, 3 years old right there. That's me. And this is why I love camping. Been doing a lot of camping over the years. Just took my family this summer a number of different times and having a great time with camping. But yeah, my dad built this thing for this truck, and then we pulled a travel trailer too. But there's an interesting story around this actual trip. So I'll get to that later. It has a little bit of a scary ending. But a good ending. Remind me to tell you guys how that story ends. That was quite the trip up in British Columbia, Canada. So good times.
Finally got to see that homemade RV. Yeah, that was nice.
Yep. Oh gosh. Yeah. So the first big buying mistake that people make, and that is not getting the out the door price. And why don't you talk about that? I'll pull up the slide and we'll get.
So out the door prices, it's actually a pretty easy mistake to make, especially when people are starting their inquiries into RVs. So the very first thing usually that they're going to see is what we call a listed price. And that listed price is the price of the unit of the RV. Okay. Why we consider that a mistake and why comparing those listed prices versus each other is an issue is because of all of the possible fees that you may pay or out the door or or all the hidden fees you may not be taking into account, or even just it's an opportunity for, say, a dealer to play games with a price, right? So what we mean is basically you need to ask for what is the actual amount you'll be signing your financing for or writing a check for if you're a cash buyer. That is how you get an out-the-door price. So it's important that you get that so that you can see everything that you're paying for, so that you have an actual point of reference to compare one dealer to another. You're not really comparing apples to apples when you're looking at the unit price of an RV, okay? It's very easy to have that mistake, and we'll get to some of those fees here in a minute. But it's very easy to make the mistake of looking at simply the unit price of an RV and not seeing some of those what we would call your administrative fees, a lot of them being unavoidable. But if they're not taken into account, you're not really getting an apples to apples comparison on a price. So just taking that into mind, or keeping that in mind, but also it's when you have that out the door price, now at that point, it's basically an agreed upon point at which to negotiate with your dealer in terms of making sure that from the first minute you get an out the door price, that is what they've agreed that you will pay for their good or their service, and you shouldn't ever pay a cent more. So that's where we're getting with that. Yeah,
because you don't want surprises when you go to sign your final paperwork and you're picking up your RV after you've waited a few weeks or whatever it was to get it. Yeah, that's the last place you want surprises on your fees. And then, like you said, apples to apples, figure out going in, do I need a service contract or whatever pieces you need? Because sometimes they play this game where they move money in and out of different accessories and add-ons and warranties and all that kind of stuff. So you want to know at the end of all of that and the taxes and everything, what am I going to pay? And then when you're comparing that to another dealership or another model or whatever, exactly, this is this much, I have to budget for that. This is how much, this is the monthly payment I need. So that's good. I just threw up the poll to ask if this is going to be your first time purchasing or not. And so people are filling that in right now.
Cool.
Looks like we're about 55% yes, this is their first time, and 45% not the first time. So good. It's cool to see how many of you are learning. And that's the cool thing too with camping. It's better just to jump in. I mean, you're not going to get it perfect the first time. The guy that I was telling you that I met yesterday from Aurora, Colorado that picked up, I asked him, he said, yeah, we had a Rockwood Roo and for 6 years, and we decided that we, as the kids are getting bigger, that we didn't like the pop out sides, like we want it more, we want to expand it bigger, but have it solid. I mean, it's just little stuff that you learn as you start playing with, but don't be afraid to jump in, because right now the way the market is, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but for used, and you can get a premium. So you can, you don't have to be afraid of like, I just have to spend a year trying to get the right RV. We just want the experience is what you're really buying. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely,
you can buy a vehicle with 4 wheels and it'll hold their family, but what you're buying is the experience of time together with your family in a fun location, a beautiful outdoors kind of location, people that are like you, that are really friendly, that, like that's what I found in camping, even this summer. I mean, I forgot stuff. We came out, I didn't have propane in my tank. Neighbor next to me brought over a whole tank of propane. I didn't have a long enough sewer hose. He gave me, this is all kinds of stuff. So people are great. And that's what you want to do. You want to get out, see if some of you want to go see the sites you haven't seen. And like this picture here, out west or the Grand Canyon, different places. Or
traveling on your terms too, being able to,
especially with COVID, right?
Yeah, I mean, and if you're like me, even just plane travel when it was safer to fly, right? the queuing in lines at the airport, and you have a designated time at your takeoff and departure, and everything's so scripted. The freedom of the RV life, being able to travel on your own terms, decide when you're going to pick up and move to the next spot. It's just really, really nice. I don't know about everybody here. I know some people are itinerary people that want to plan out their minutes, but when I'm on vacation, that's the last thing I want to do. I want to stay for as long as I feel like it, move when I feel like it. So the RV lifestyle for vacationing, just the freedom that it offers is something that in and of itself, again, don't spend so much time thinking that I'm going to get the perfect RV, because your needs will change a dozen times in the first year. Things you think you needed, they won't be. But really just getting out and getting a chance to experience it, and then spending time realizing what are the things that are important to you and what aren't.
That's when you really figure it out. I mean, it was after we spent quite a bit of time and we decided, Class D is not for us. Like, it's just not enough room, but it's nice kind of being able to just have one vehicle, but then, so you just the way what works for you guys. And so the one thing I want to talk about, and you mentioned it a little bit, was hidden fees. So I'm going to pop up a slide here, and Dustin, can you go ahead and tell us what's a real common hidden fee that you're seeing come in that people are caught off guard with it?
Yeah. So we should really almost, and every time we do this, I think about it, the first two really go hand in hand. And why we tell you to ask for that out the door price is so that for a dealer that would play a game with their pricing, they're going to be responsible to tell you, they need to tell you about every fee that's going to be included in their price. Because that's where you're going to get the real apples to apples comparison. If you have two unit prices and one looks better, but out the door, the prices are different, what are they doing with their fees to make up that money? And that's where we're trying to get people to ask those questions and get the fees included. A lot of these that we're going to go over are mandatory. There's no way around them. You're going to pay them everywhere you go. But getting that out the door price with them included is how you then actually compare what am I paying for. So the first one on the list there, PDI, that's a really common one. Now, we see that paid for a lot at a lot of dealerships. So that's pre-delivery inspection. It's very common to do. It's a process, okay? It's not an actual fee. It's a process. Now, it's up to each individual dealer about how or what they charge for that, obviously. In our case, we don't. It's something that has to be done on every unit that arrives here, whether we're selling it immediately, whether it's already sold, it doesn't matter. But what essentially it is an inspection of a brand new unit top to bottom, and it's an inspection for errors from factory, right? So usually, like for us, for instance, it's like a 100-point checklist that we're going through, basically checking all your systems, all the cosmetics, the construction, quality, everything, top to bottom.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I mean, I've walked by some of the trailers you guys are PDIing, and the guys are up there with iPads taking videos of the roof with a hose. I've gotten wet, water coming down. And it's like, what is going on? And they're up there flooding the roofs around all the vents, making sure things don't leak. I mean, it's definitely something you need done.
It's also entirely necessary. I mean, it's necessary, right? If you don't, nobody would want to buy an RV that would have an issue the minute it left the lot. And honestly, no dealership would want to sell one that's going to have an issue the minute it leaves a lot. You're trying to weed out and make sure that they are perfect when they leave, because we want your experience to be a good one. And every dealer that is ever going to sell you anything wants your experience to be a good one. They don't want you to have a bad experience with their good. So a pre-delivery inspection is a must. It has to happen. I compare it to walking into a retail location. If you walked into a store and it's a mess, lights are out and product is poorly displayed, you're going to have an immediately bad reaction when you walk in. It's the same thing when you get in a car on a lot. You want it to be clean. It should obviously run. All the systems should be working the way they're intended. It's the same thing with an RV. If it's not operable, if it doesn't do the things that it's supposed to do, if it's dirty, if it leaks, all those things, poorly lit, lights are out, things like that. All the things that are there as a presentation tool are also there because you need them. And so that inspection, whether it's simply a display piece on a lot or it's already sold and being delivered to a customer, it has to happen for every single unit. It's up to a dealer whether or not it's going to be charged. And that's one that you should find out about up front. Again, if you are at the back end of a sale You've already signed paperwork. Unit arrives, you're there, and you're excited to pick up, and you're getting ready to sign off on your financing, and you find out that it's $2,000 more because they're charging you for your pre-delivery inspection. That's where we're talking about a hidden fee. That should be disclosed up front. You should know what you're paying for and why.
So, hey, give me an idea, like what some of your customers have been seeing as far as when they've gotten other sales agreements or whatever, that like what's a kind of a price that some people are popping up for this PDI?
I've seen anywhere from $500 to $2,000 being charged for a PDI, and even more. I've had one case where she was charged $3,000 for a PDI.
Gosh.
The other reason why that makes no sense, okay, is because everything that's being corrected, let's say you ordered an RV, you had to wait for it to come in from a factory, it's there, and now you're being charged a pre-delivery inspection fee. Why that doesn't make any sense is the factory is actually on the hook for any repair, any replacement at that point, okay? That's still under the first year factory warranty. Everything is meant to be perfect at that point, and the manufacturer is responsible for paying the dealer back for any work they do to make it right, okay? So if you're being charged then for that delivery inspection because there were issues with the trailer, that dealer is now double dipping. They're getting factory and they're getting reimbursed from the customer. That's why we disagree with the PDI being charged for in the first place. But it should be a process that happens because the factory, again, the manufacturers are on the hook to make sure that it's delivered to the dealer in perfect condition.
Yeah. So number one, make sure you ask the question, did this unit get PDI'd? And then is that going to be part of is it an add-on fee, or is it going to show up at the end here? And just make sure. And that's good. Guys, I just put up a file for you so you can download that. So this has all 5 of the hidden fees that we're talking about. I don't know. We won't get to all of them today, but you can look at that handout and print that out or whatever. And that'll help you out. So I'll go ahead and download that anytime you want. It's just a 1-page PDF. Next on the list here is number 2, the factory transport fee. Just kind of talk about transportation, what you're seeing being hidden in that. And
so this is another one. This is actually one that's unavoidable. It's one you'll pay for, whether you know it or not. You'll pay for it on every good you buy. I've talked about it in the past. If anybody's been a repeat guest, you'll have heard this every time. But fuel surcharges and freight surcharges are on every good you've ever bought. This mouse right here, when you bought it online or you went to a Best Buy and picked it up, you paid for it. It's not listed in the price. It's not itemized out on your receipt, but it is included in the cost of that good for that retailer to sell. They have to cover that in their profit. So why we include this one here is that it's something that, in our opinion, should be disclosed to the customer up front. When you're requesting an out-the-door price from us, you're going to get that as part of the pricing because it's an unavoidable part of the cost. So why typically this becomes a big issue is because, what would you say, 95% of all RVs are manufactured in Indiana? And in and around Elkhart, Indiana, it's a wildly specific manufacturing location for RVs, but that's where most of them are manufactured. For you to transport, say, 400 of this specific brand and model of mouse to a retailer would cost maybe $20 for all of them, right? And fuel surcharge and freight fees, because you can stack 400 of them on a single pallet, and it's easy and cheap to ship. The problem with an RV is that they're one-off and have to be towed one at a time. You can't pull 6 of them down the road. You can't even pull 2 of them down the road. You're going to have to pull them single item only. That increases the price that you have to pay for your factory freight fees exponentially, okay? Why we tell you that you need to ask about that out-the-door price is so important is because the distance can greatly determine how much you're paying in factory freight. So if you're only listed in RV unit cost, a lot of places will have the same unit cost, right? But once you get down to brass tacks, if you have to go from Indiana to Colorado with an RV, the price will be more. It will be much more, significantly so. And so you need to understand how much you're paying in that factory freight fee. Why we want it to be transparent for people is so they understanding then can research and make sure that they're not being overcharged for factory freight. So we typically see between $1.50 to $2 a mile, somewhere in that range. I would say anything above $2.50 a mile on factory freight starts to become questionable. Anything over $3 a mile is now a profit maker for the dealership. Okay.
Yeah. So do the math. So if you're in Florida, Orlando, Florida, type in your maps, Orlando, directions to Elkhart, Indiana, and that'll tell you how many miles. And then you'll know, multiply that times 1.5, and you know about what that fee should be.
Yes. So you can get a pretty good estimate there on what you should be looking at as far as a factory freight fee. I also like to split this up into two things. A lot of people do confuse factory freight with delivery rates. So those are two different things. A factory freight fee is typically lower because it's a designated and agreed upon price point between a dealer and the factory. There's less overhead involved and less risk involved because the dealer is usually receiving great quantities, so they're able to save money. Whereas, so let's say, customized delivery from a dealership to your home is typically going to be more expensive on average. It's usually with a third-party contractor that has to carry exceptional insurance, expensive insurance to be able to tow RVs in a one-off fashion that way. Additionally, they're usually only single way towers, so they're going to tow one way and come back empty, so you're basically paying for a two-way trip in a lot of cases for delivery.
But it's still not much more than I would say more than $2.
I would say on the high end $3 a mile, but that's really going to depend more on the type of RV that's being transported.
How big? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If it takes specialized equipment,
you guys have
fifth wheels and things.
You guys deliver all over the country, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and Alaska?
Yep. Alaska, all of Canada, or pretty much all of Canada. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hawaii even. Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. I want to remind people, type your questions into the chat area if you have them. We're also going to record this and send you a recording about 2 hours after. You'll get an email from us with the recording, a replay for today, so you can jump back in here or subscribe to YouTube channel called RV Wholesalers. So you just go to youtube.com, type in RV Wholesalers, and then you subscribe there, and you can see this particular webinar or some other ones. Get a lot of different questions answered that way too. Donald asked, what fees should not apply on a used RV? Thanks, Don.
It's going to depend. Obviously, if you're buying it from a dealer still, you're typically not going to have a factory freight fee in there because it's not coming from a factory. It's going to be dropped off there. You also are not going to see things like, in not every case will you see a pre-delivery inspection done. I can tell you from multiple different stops along my career route that in most cases, used goods are sold as is. They may do an inspection to make sure that the vehicle, the recreational vehicle, is safe to go down the road. But beyond that, as far as cosmetics and things like that, you're not going to have much recourse. You don't have any factory warranty at that point to make sure that fit and finish is perfect. That's not part of the deal. They're not responsible for it. You're going to buy it as is, which I know that for a lot of people that's a little bit confusing because they know that there's still an inspection being done and they're buying from a dealer, but that dealer may not even carry that specific brand that they have as a used unit, and so would have no manufacturing ties or warrantable repairs be done. So just a heads up on that. If you are buying used, I would tell you that the thing that you need to do as a used buyer is you need to become an expert. Okay. You need to know what to inspect as well. You need to know what you're looking for because in this specific market, there's a lot more customer to customer sales happening for used units than there are dealer to customer of used units. So that's something I would keep an eye out for. You need to be able to do inspections yourself and know what you're looking for.
Yeah. And let's roll into used a little bit. I know that there's people that this isn't their first time, but they may be trading in. It sounds like we have almost half of our people. Someone may be trading in. So what's your recommendation for the trading? Because one of my bullet points was not getting the most for trade-in. So how do you get the most for your trade-in?
Well, there are a couple of things. In this, specifically in the year that we're talking about, in this snapshot in time, I would tell, and I have been advising everybody I talk to with a used unit to sell it themselves. List it privately, whether it's RV Trader, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, whatever it is. List it yourself, sell it yourself. Now, to make sure that you're getting the value you deserve, what I would do is I would take the time to get into the NADA guides, which, for anybody unfamiliar, there are both physical and digital versions of the NADA guides. They are updated constantly. The physical version is a book that's about that thick, that we have laying around here all over the place. But I would stay in the NADA guide, and I would look at your unit both, and there are two key values you're looking at. There's low book and high book value. So in this market, it's not uncommon to see private sellers not only listing, but able to sell at and above their high book value. That is a bit of an outlier. Okay. So what you have to keep in mind is that when a dealer is going to buy your RV, for us, for instance, as a wholesaler, we have our policy is we're going to have the best price. That's just by standing. So when we're looking at something, we're going to offer below low book because we're going to sell at the low book pricing. Because of this, we obviously are not able to compete with the current market and buy RVs, used RVs currently. But for a private seller or a private buyer, what I would tell you is that when you're looking at the value of an RV, if you're going to trade in or if you're going to sell, I would be looking at that high book value if it's in good shape. And that's where my target would be trying to get that high book value out of it. A lot of cases, that's going to be a lot closer to what people actually value their RVs at. I also want people to realize that if a dealer gives you a price that's underneath the high book value or even underneath the low book value to try to buy your RV, they're not doing it to insult you. Not at all. They're looking at their business and they're trying to make sure that they can make a profit on that used unit. Because if they can't sell it again, there's no point in taking the trade in. And a lot of dealers are stuck where they're unable to compete with that market. If you could go out and sell it above the high book value, there's no way the dealer can sell it at that. And they definitely can't buy it from you at that. So
it's a seller's market right now.
Right. And my goal for customers, especially if they do have that used unit, is I want to make sure they're getting the most value for that. Okay. So I'm happy to coach people through how to list them, how to price them so that they're making sure they're maximizing the value.
Do you mind if I put up your contact information so if people say, hey, what's the value of this?
Absolutely.
And you could look it up in the NADA book that just came out like last week or whatever it was.
Yep.
All right. Let me pop that up here for you. So here's Dustin's contact information, dbray@rvwholesalers.com, extension 133.
Yep.
There's the 800 number if you want to reach out. You're working all day today, right? So
I'll be here until 5. Yeah.
Till 5. Okay. Yep. Awesome. So people can reach out to Dustin today or Monday. And thanks for helping them with that. And things like RV Trader, and don't be afraid to list it in others. That's what we're seeing. People are so crazy for used RVs right now. They'll drive and pay a premium from states away. So so don't think, I can only list this in Cleveland, Ohio, if I live in Cleveland, Ohio, or whatever. It's crazy right now. So RV Trader, Facebook Marketplace, and just to name a couple places you can list it. So cool. Let's talk about used real quick, because I know some people had talked about, should I buy used, buy new?
Right.
I was kind of surprised when we were camping in October. We did a Halloween camping trip with the kids, and that was fun. And the couple right beside us, Christy Calkins and her husband, they ran over to one. We brought 2 RVs. One was a toy hauler and one was a Wildwood, and they a travel trailer. And they came running over to this travel trailer because they had a travel trailer and they had their 2 kids, and they were looking at it and like, man, this is nice. This is perfect. It was all brand new and had everything theirs had, plus all the new amenities from the Bluetooth to the, all the outside kitchen stuff that they needed. And I asked them how much they paid for theirs used, and they paid $15,500 for theirs. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago, before the market got crazy. And the new one that they were looking at that they loved, that fit their family needs just like their used one, was $16,000 or something. I mean, it was like a no-brainer for them. They're like, well, we can have a brand new one, never been used, no issues, and all the latest and greatest tech and everything for the same price they paid for a used one. So
Yep.
definitely do your homework, especially now. It's crazy as the prices have gone. So cool. Let's move on to our third big buying mistake people make a lot of times, and that's not understanding the terms and RV financing. You want to talk about that for a second, and I'll get we'll bring in our expert Dallas from the office there, sales manager.
So, and Dallas will get into this in the video we've got here, but a really common thing for people not to understand what the terms of buying a new RV is, especially if you've never RV'd before and you've never dealt with a recreational vehicle loan. You've probably come from a background where you've worked with mortgages and you've worked with car loans, or even like smaller loans for retail purchases, where essentially the longer or the shorter the term, the better rate, the better deal you're going to get. It's almost completely inversed with recreational loans. The lower risk loans are stretched longer. So what we see really commonly are low interest rates with a term much longer than people expect. Okay. Just this week, had one for over 15 years, on, I think, a $35,000 purchase. People are not expecting to have a term length like that. They're not expecting that. So, that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is understanding, what are your best options to get out as quickly as possible? How do you remain flexible? And how do you get the most bang for your buck, in terms of, even if you're a cash buyer, how can you manipulate those financing terms to be in your best interest? So, and Dallas will dive into that, and then I'll fill back in a little bit more.
Yeah, here's Dallas from earlier.
Hey guys, Dallas Henry here. I'm going to talk to you guys today a little bit about financing an RV, a couple of the tips, tricks, things you might need to know. One big thing a lot of people don't know is when it comes to RVs is term. Term with recreational vehicles can be a lot longer than what most people are used to, especially financing cars and things like that. One big thing to remember is generally they'll go out to sometimes 20 years. I know it seems crazy to some people, but it's quite a long time. They want to make that payment really manageable. Now with recreational vehicles, if you have pretty good credit, longer term often means better rate, which is kind of flips everything on its head of whatever everybody really knows, again, when it comes to cars and mortgages and things like that. Because generally with those type of items, the shorter term generally means better rate. Okay? With RVs, remember, that's not always the case. If you got pretty good credit, normally the longer term, better rate. So that's one big thing to remember when you're going to finance a recreational vehicle. So keep that in mind as you go. Again, just to recap, longer term, good credit, typically a little bit better rate. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of that longer term. Even if you want to pay it off a little earlier, that's okay. They are simple interest loans. At least they should be. With all of our lenders, they are simple interest loans. So you can pay the loan off a little bit earlier. Okay, if you guys so choose you want to do it, and you can apply more money to principal, that'll have you paying at least a lot less interest over the term of that loan, whatever the term you decide it is. Once you lock in a deal with a bank or lock in a deal with a dealer, you can change how fast you pay it off. You can change how much money you throw towards the interest and the principal and things like that. One thing you can't change is the rate. So remember that. You always want to get the best rate, and a lot of times that is longer term. Okay. Another thing to remember is don't ever tie your recreational vehicle loan to your house. A lot of people think, hey, really good rates with my home equity loan. Put a lot of work into this house. I want to use that equity. Not a real good, wise idea. I'm not a financial analyst by any stretch of the imagination. But what I will tell you is when the proverbial hits the fan, and things happen. As so many people know in 2020, there's a lot of things that have happened this year that no one expected to happen. One thing that can happen is you can lose your job. You can have time off, things that you might not be getting the money you thought you were getting. So in that situation, the last thing you want to have happen is you not be able to make your RV payment and that be tied to your house, because now if something happens, they're not coming to just get your RV, they're coming to get the house now too. So don't risk your family, don't risk your livelihood, don't risk your finances by doing something like that. It's something to really remember.
Thanks, Jeff.
So every time that I hear like this segment too, and we go through this every time, one of the things that I really, really want people to do too is to when you're at the point of making a purchase of an RV, I think it's important that one, you're working with a dealer that you trust, but also that one of their goals is understanding your financial picture. And I think that obviously I'm biased towards our guys, but I think that one of the things they do really, really well, and I think people should have that trust with the dealer they're working with, is looking at the financial picture that the customer has laid out and talking through plans as far as what's going to make the most sense for that customer and what's going to be realistic and doable. To understand that person and their needs very, very intimately, because a good financial team for a dealership wants the customer to be in a situation to be able to pay off their RV comfortably, for it not to be a burden that then needs to be gotten rid of, but to really fit their needs well, because that's all part of customer satisfaction in the long run.
That's good. Thomas was asking a question before we move on. What's the markup on park models? You want to talk a little bit about MSRP and markups and kind of
yeah. So I know we're a little bit behind here on the questions, so we'll get caught up here. But the markup on a park model isn't going to be any different than the markup on any other kind of RV. Your biggest issue is understanding the difference between MSRP and what the actual value of the RV is. So MSRP is essentially a suggested price from out of nowhere, right? It's suggested from the manufacturer, right? But it's building in huge margin, and it's really a made up number. It's not required to run a business to earn the MSRP pricing. So really what you want to do is, the most important thing you can do to make sure that you're getting a fair deal is understand that there will be depreciation, as there is with every brand new purchase. I think a lot of people don't realize that if you buy a piece of furniture, it has precisely zero resale value once it leaves the home, depending on the state. Many items like that cannot be legally resold. So that dictates the terms at which they are sold. They are high risk. An RV is more like an automobile in terms of its depreciation. It's going to lose value the minute that you take possession and start residing in it. It's essentially a house on wheels, and it would simply by being in it, even in great condition, it has lost value. So understand that up front. But also when you are buying a brand new RV, the most important thing you can do is get those out the door prices to compare an apples to apples comparison, and cast your net broad. Okay. A lot of dealerships across the nation offer service and offer, the ability to deliver to you. So I would cast a broad net when you start to look at those, and then really zero in. The best thing you can do is zero in on the features and floor plans that you like, because there may be two identical models with two different exterior badge symbols and two different brand names that are built the exact same way and probably built on two separate lines in the same factory. So that's another way to make sure that you're getting something that you want and it's going to fit you, but also paying a fair price for it.
Yeah, that's really if you're just starting, that's kind of start with that. Do I need a park model? Do I need a travel trailer, a toy hauler? Like what is your big need as far as the 5 or 6 types of RVs? It's kind of funny when I first started working with these guys, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I thought RV meant motorhome, and then like I didn't realize RV was kind of the encompassing category for all travel trailers, motorhomes, Class A, Class C, and all the different ones. So figured that out. Then figure out your floor plan next, probably, and then there's 2 basic different types of manufacturing. One is they have sidewalls that are made out of fiberglass and aluminum structure inside them. I have an example here, but let me see if I can go a little bit bigger here. Okay, so this is aluminum instead of wood, little 1x2 wood studs. These are aluminum that are welded together, and then on the outside of on the outside, this is what your outside would look like. It just happens to be this color, but that's a fiberglass covering. And then all this with the insulation, which is a styrofoam foam block, is compressed in a vacuum press. And it's all put together and laminated together. So that's a laminated sidewall, fiberglass sidewall. And the other one is aluminum. It's more like aluminum siding, goes side to side. And then it's typical house construction. It's got 1x2s and then insulation that's glued in place so it doesn't sag down and stuff. And then you got these aluminum sidewalls. And so there's the two types. Pricing varies. Both have pros and cons. And
absolutely.
Both, if you take care of them, will be fine. But anyways, and then, but the floor plan and working for you is really the biggest thing, right?
What you touched on right there too is a very important point, is that both have pros and cons. I know a lot of people get stuck on one or the other, and not realizing that there are cons with both and there are pros with both. And it's important that you understand, like a very good, for instance, is if I know a customer is going to be doing lots of over-the-road travel with an RV, fiberglass sidewalls make a lot of sense. They're a lot more durable, going down the road to road debris and things like that. Whereas if you were in an all aluminum sided one, you may spend a lot of time on the road and have a lot of nicks and dings in the aluminum. Then there's the pro con of, if I get a nick or a ding in my fiberglass, it's expensive to repair. And if I get a nick or a ding in my aluminum sheeting, it's very cheap. It's very easy to repair. So again, pros, cons for everything. I would narrow down your search based on what you plan to use it for and find your floor plan. That's the fastest way to figure out what's going to be right for you. Yep.
And that's what we're trying to encourage you, that it doesn't need to be, your first one doesn't, for sure.
No. So. And we get that all the time. I mean, people get into an RV and 4 years later, guess what? Kids, family, things are different. They've got 2 dogs now. Now they need a lot more space. They need a whole new set of needs are now having to be met. So we understand things change for people, and that's part of the great part of RVing is that everybody's a little bit different, and what you need today might be different tomorrow. So we get it.
Hey, so I've been holding off on this number 4, which the buying mistake is that you not knowing the big dealer financing secret. So yep. I think this is a big. Or I wouldn't call it the big dealer financing secret. Right. But could you go ahead and reveal what that is? Because I think this will help our folks.
So when we talk about why, I'll just get right to it. What happens with the business in an RV is that loan, right? Those huge long loan terms and the interest rates that we work so hard to get, we're essentially handing off the business to a bank, and that bank. Typically, for what we do, most of ours are national lenders are paying us for that business. So typically, you're going to get what we call a dealer reserve, is the money paid from the bank to the dealership for basically as a portion of the business they expect to earn on the loan. Obviously the bank's out to make money. That's what they're there. They're not just giving you a loan out of the goodness of their heart. That's why there are interest rates attached. They're making money. And because they do that, they give some of that profit, that expected profit, back to the dealership.
Can I call it a kickback? But it's not like it's illegal. It's more of a commission, or what do you call
essentially. A dealer reserve, but a commission is a good way to look at it, right? It's like if you thought of a single dealership as a salesperson on its own, and the bank as the business, they're paying a commission to that salesperson or that dealership for earning that business for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every loan that's written with them.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, the thing with those is that a lot of people expect, and it's not even that really surprising for most people to realize that the bank would pay the dealership for the business, because they're facilitating, they're doing all the work, and really the bank's offering out the money in a contract form, so they're protected. So they're really relatively low risk for them. So one of the things that people get confused about, though, is they don't understand the amount of money that can be passed back and forth in that case. We're not talking a few $100s here. I think even on some of the smaller loans we give out, we can see between $1,500 to $2,000. And that's on the small end. On larger loans, it's not entirely unreasonable to see a large Class A leave and a $10,000 dealer reserve check be written. So you can see huge swings in money. I
remember when the owners of RV Wholesalers, after they did their first loan, sent loans up through the bank, they all of a sudden they got a check, and like, why did we get this? Like, they'd already paid their bills made their little profit that they needed to be in business. And then all of a sudden this check arrives from the bank, a thank you check, basically. And they're like, well, what are we going to do with this? So they weren't planning on it. So then they figured out, well, let's give this back to the customer, and figured out a way to do that, which I think is cool. If you want to share about that, but yeah, it's thousands of dollars though. So it's not just $300 the bank's giving them.
Right. And so this is actually one that, unlike the other mistakes that we see made, where we're going to tell you need to be upfront and direct about finding those hidden fees, about figuring out what delivery and factory freight costs, all those things you need to get done up front and get your out the door price. Then that is when once you've got that out the door contract, that's when you ask about the dealer reserve.
Okay. So hold that card.
Correct. Yes. If you ask about it up front, miraculously, the unit cost of that RV will be exactly the amount more. Okay. That's a game that can be played. We're trying to arm everybody out there with the information they need to get out the door with the least amount of money spent, and to make sure that they're holding dealers accountable and making sure that they're getting fair and honest pricing. In a dealer's defense, they're not going to give away money for free, and nor should they. It's their job to make profits, to continue to grow their businesses. That's how the free market works. But we want our customers to be armed with the information to make and keep their money as well.
That's what kind of shocked me. Last 2 months, I've been over in Elkhart, and I've interviewed and gone into at least 4 or 5 factories with cameras, and it's been awesome. Like, I was impressed that the quality is still going, the inspection, everything is like just plugging along. They're just backing up the queue line a lot longer nowadays because they only have so many people that can work, and they're not even adding like third shifts. I'm surprised. They're just plugging along at their normal pace, and so actually I think quality's gotten better because they're doing more days of one particular model run, but that's besides the point.
Right.
But yeah, but what I was surprised is at least 3 of those manufacturers reps, when I was talking to them, and I didn't even ask this question, but they brought it up. It's like, we're very disappointed that many dealers are gouging, and that caught me off guard until I heard it 3 times from 3 manufacturers talking about their dealers, which bring them their money and their food. That really shocked me. And so, and these are ways that are tapping. They're taking pieces of the financing money. They're taking pieces of this, and they're getting when it ends up stacking up, they're making more than they really need to be profitable and doing well in business. It's being excessive at this point. They're kind of, and that's why that was our motivation to we got to help people at least realize what's going on and understand it and make sure they shop around and figure it out. So
yeah.
So what about there was a person had asked at one point was if they've been saving up and they want to pay cash, and they sold their house, whatever.
Right.
That part, this is something they've been wanting to do for a long time.
So that cash question gets brought up a lot, and it was a lot. I saw it a lot in our pre-survey for questions. So we're getting used to answering that one. What I normally recommend, again, out the door pricing, right? And ask the dealer for both prices. If I'm paying cash or if I'm financing, what are our prices? That's again part of your out the door pricing. When you're asking, you need to get multiple options, multiple payment plans. How do I get out the door with the most savings? In our specific instance, what I would typically recommend a customer do to get the very best deal that they could would still be to finance, even if they had the money to write a check that day. The reason being for that is that what we talked about with the financing discount, what we call it is a financing discount, but the dealer reserve money that's paid out from the financing institutions can be used as a discount. So we're a wholesale dealer. We're selling everything at the lowest price we can anyway. The only way we can get a discount is through that financing discount, and we're happy to use it that way. And then explain very clearly up front that you don't intend to pay that loan off in 10 or 15 years. Even if it's open for that amount of time, you want to be done with it well before. What I would recommend is you still take the full length loan, disclose that you want to pay it off early so that we get you with a bank that is going to have little to no early payoff fee. In a lot of cases, even banks that do have early payoff fees are like $150, right? Something like that. And then pay aggressively on it as quickly as possible. So you're only paying interest on the payments as you go, right? That's simple interest loan, and it's calculated every day. So if you wanted to be done after 1 calendar year, you could be. And you might accrue a couple $100 in interest to save, in most cases, between $2,000 and $3,000 in financing discount. So I was very interested to realize that interest is calculated every day. So for a lot of people, what I recommend them do is on their first payment they get from the bank, make their normal monthly payment, pay everything else off but the remaining 12. Because after that first year, you're free to refinance, you're free to pay off.
Oh, okay.
The fees are very minimal.
So if you had a $200 payment,
yep,
you would say, and it was a $50,000 unit, whatever, pay off the $47,000 or whatever on the first payment, and then leave your $200 for the last 11.
If it was a $200 payment, you'd have $2,400 that you'd need to leave. $2,200 you'd need to leave after the first payment was made. So you'd write a check for your
paying interest on that.
Correct.
$2,200,
and they're not recalculating it next quarter. They're recalculating your interest paid the next day. So those simple interest loans, it's recalculated the next day. So everything you pay above and beyond, even if you weren't a cash buyer, but you could afford $400 a month, do that, because only $200 is going to be applied as the payment. The other $200 goes directly to principal. So you're then saving every single time. You're saving on the total interest paid the entire life of the loan.
That's why it's better to get that long 20-year and pay it in 10 compared to getting a 10-year.
Correct.
Because you would pay less by paying a 20-year in 10 because you got a better interest rate.
Correct. You could see as much as a 2 percentage point difference in interest rate over that amount of time. And in most cases, that's going to save yourself so much money. You could see $7,000-8,000 in savings by paying off a 20-year note in 10 years.
Yeah, it's kind of opposite of houses. Yeah, so that's interesting.
It's hard to get your head around until you see it on paper and you start to put pen to paper and do the math on it. It's hard to get your head around because your brain, everybody is thinking about mortgage and car payment and things like that, but these loans are entirely different. It is just different. So again, like I said before, I have so much trust in our guys when we talk about our financing team, having people that you can trust to explain the math to you to make sure that you're getting the very best price and that you're getting out the door in a reasonable way. And then
when you're budgeting too, don't forget sales tax. So you're going to pay your state sales tax in the state that you reside. So even if you're in Florida and you want it delivered to Florida, but your residence is in Wisconsin.
Correct.
So your Wisconsin rate for your county sales tax. So and avoid that. And then, let's talk about service. That's a big thing. And I want to go to the owner, David Durnell, one of the founders of RV Wholesalers, him and his brother, Mike, and talk to him real briefly via video from before. But that's a big question I have, and I know the answer, but could you explain, so if these people are buying from other place, you said, ship to Alaska, how do you service, obviously they're going to have a problem at some point, as long as they keep it, multiple years, there's going to be some point in that lifetime that there's going to be issues. Well, how do they get service when they're that far from Ohio, where you guys are based out of in near Columbus, Ohio?
So this is a simple answer for me because we have an answer for that question. It's not so simple for everybody. One thing that I would tell you is that one of the first things you need to ask when you're going to buy an RV is, what is your process? What is the process when I need service, when I need warranty work done? How does that happen? How do I facilitate it? Where does it go? Where do I have to bring the RV? Do you come to me? Those are all questions you need to ask. In our case, what I would tell people is we offer a nationwide service network. We have 2,900 locations that have agreed to work with us and do service for us. The process is very simple. If you were to be in, I was going to say Wisconsin, but you just used them, so I'm going to say Missouri, and you were camping or traveling, and you had an issue with your air conditioner, and you needed warranty work done, you would still call us, and we would then coordinate with the closest service center that we have that we know works with us, pay for the service up front directly to them. so that then all you have to do is talk to us and we take care of the legwork from there. It's just the way our owners feel like it should be handled. A lot of people offer what sound like really great service deals, just with the buzzwords, lifetime warranty, we'll take care of it whenever, those sorts of things. But what you find out as you get into the actual nuts and bolts of the process is that you're going to be on the hook for the payment up front. You're then going to be the one waiting for reimbursement from the factory for any warranty work.
Which that takes forever.
Yeah. I've actually worked in customer service way back in the past, and basically 50% of my job was hounding manufacturers for reimbursement. Trust me, you would rather a professional customer service department be in charge of that than you as a person. That's not your job. So, additionally, I know a huge concern for people is, well, if I didn't buy it from, say, Joe's RV here in Georgia, but it's the closest place to me that can work on an RV, they're not going to take care of me because I didn't buy it from them. That can be a yes and a no. They're going to be very lowly motivated to take care of you if they're going to be doing warranty work that they're going to be waiting months to be reimbursed on. However, with a process the way we run it, they're being paid up front. So even if it's not something they normally work on, or it's not something they would get reimbursed from factory on, they're not waiting. They're being paid up front and out the door.
That's what I think is neat about your service network, is that it's all over the country, and it's not just service centers. It's specialists in different things that,
right.
Whether HVAC that it's been vetted, and mobile, and he'll come out and fix your AC unit if you have trouble. It always happens. It seems like when you're camping and you're far, far away from home. So it's like I may be out at Yosemite or wherever, and
you don't necessarily need an RV repair service to come in and do repair on your plumbing,
right,
or your HVAC or your water heater. You need a specialist. So even an RV repair service, in most cases, are going to have to contract the work out. So it just makes more sense to find the people that are going to help, and then target them based on their ability to do the job. So,
that's interesting. Let's take a couple minutes and meet David Durnell. I'm going to pull his video up here, and I want you to meet him.
Hey guys, glad to help. I've kind of been serving people or helping people my entire life. It's kind of how we were raised, I guess you could say, to put other people first, take care of other people. So when we started the dealership, it was sort of a natural for me, especially if you look at my teaching background. I taught for 10 years. I've always enjoyed teaching people new things. I've always enjoyed helping people, both professionally, personally, etc. Taking care of kids and stuff was such a joy, such a pleasure. So when Mike and I opened up this dealership, it just kind of sort of wasn't even a choice. We're going to focus on the people that we sell to. We're going to take care of them. We're going to treat them like family. And again, that's just how we were raised. I remember we'd been selling for a few years, and we had the idea of putting a used unit on eBay. It did really well. We put another one, and long story short, through the winter months, we had sold all of our used units. And in the spring, we thought, I wonder if people would buy a new unit. So we put a new unit on eBay, and a crazy thing happened. A guy from Iowa bought it. Put another one up. A guy from Texas bought it. And we thought, man, we've stumbled onto something here. And I never will forget my dad came in to check on us, see how we were doing, just to visit. And we were telling him how great this thing was, right? We're going to be able to sell RVs all across the U.S., it appears, through eBay. And I'll never forget, he just kind of looked at us and he said, you guys started selling because of service, right? You did service first? Yeah, of course, Dad. So service most important thing? Yeah. Well, how are you going to service people that aren't even in your state? And it was kind of a low moment, it sort of like sucked the wind out of us. And we kind of regrouped for a couple of days and thought about it, even prayed about it. And then the idea popped in our head, hey, what if we found someone in each person's hometown to take care of them? And fast forward 23 years later, that's our nationwide service network. And now we're able to sell to people all across the U.S., all across Canada, and take care of every single one of them. And I think one of the things we're most proud of is that we've never had a customer not get serviced anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. We've always been able to find someone to take care of them. and someone to meet their needs, you know. And
yeah, that's a great. It was neat to see Elizabeth chime in. Apparently, Elizabeth's you've purchased from RV Wholesalers, and they've taken care of you. That's really cool to see. So thanks for joining us. And the question that Lisa and John had, though, I want to talk about that one more time about MSRP, because I feel like let me break down a little bit, and then Dustin chime in, because what's happening is, and I wish I knew the answer, but I don't. I've seen different numbers coming from different manufacturers, so I don't see. There's definitely not a standard. Hey, this is the MSRP. It's not like the invoice price that's coming out on cars and things. And what I've seen is the only standard I've seen coming across is the MAP price, which is the minimum advertised price. So that's the only thing that really is coming from the manufacturer, saying you cannot advertise this in public unless you have a phone number, email address, or a contact of someone that you're working with. Then you can give them a price that's lower than the advertised price. So nothing on the website can say the manufacturer says this is $50,000 minimum advertised price. Well, they can say it's 94,000 MSRP, but we'll sell it for 51,000. But if they go below that 50,000 and they put it on the website, 49,000 on sale today, 49,000, they're in big trouble with the, and then we'll likely lose that line with the manufacturer. So that's what MAP pricing is.
Yep.
And that one is really the number that I see coming. And then obviously the dealers know what their price is that they paid for it, because they paid for it. So I think it's kind of working backwards. I think dealerships are building the MSRP off of what they paid for it, or this MAP price, this plus 40%, or this, is that what you think how the MSRP is? I mean, some of the manufacturers may have a number that comes that they put on their website, but it's kind of different.
I would tell you, do not look at MSRP pricing. Right. Don't use it as a guide, because it's not. It's made up. It can be whatever the dealer wants it to be, right? They can mark it up 150% so that they can mark it off 70% and make you feel like you still got a good deal, but they really made all their margin dollars. It's how you play that price. What I would tell you is you need to get your out the door price. What's the best price you can do out the door? Okay, that's the only question you need. What's your best price out the door? And then compare. And then if you have somebody that their best price out the door is what it is until you come back with another comparison, and then magically they can beat that, they were playing games with you from the start, right? If their lowest price is already the lowest one they can go, that's a problem, right? We just don't believe in that sort of a game being played at all. Just don't agree with it. And we're trying actively to combat that. That's why we tell you ignore the MSRP pricing.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for summing that up. The last thing, which we're not going to have time to cover much in warranties or service agreements, but there's two that
I'll get through it quick.
Yeah, just super fast. Give us the two types that.
Okay. So there are basically two types of warranties. There is exclusionary and stated. Stated bad, because it's only stating the things that are covered, not the 10,000 things that can go wrong. Exclusionary good, it's giving you a list of things that won't be covered. Everything else is included. Okay. Stated is going to look really nice because it's telling you all kinds of cool things they're covering, but they're not telling you everything that's not going to be covered. So exclusionary can look like, oh, well, these are the things that aren't covered, when really there's a list of 10,000 things that can go wrong, and only those 20 things are not covered. So stated bad, exclusionary good is the quick and dirty version. Yeah. The other thing is make sure that you're buying your service contracts a la carte, not paying lump sum for a giant contract that covers things you don't need covered. Okay. Yeah,
that's good. And that I'll put up your phone number and contact. So if they have more questions on that, and also beware of the warranty forever, lifetime warranty. I don't know what they call them. They have different names for different dealerships. But what that is, that's basically a model that gets you into a dealership for an inspection every year, and it's all in their favor. They told us as a dealership, you'll be guaranteed almost $900 a year from every customer every year because they come in for inspection, need little things done, and you can charge them. So
right.
that one is not really much of a service agreement.
No,
for sure. Okay, so I wish we had more time to answer more questions, but we're running out of time. But don't forget, you can just take a picture of the RV that you're going to buy and stick it in a box while you work out the details.
Yep. Well, if you're like us and you're anywhere in the Midwest, you're not going to be out in that thing anyway. Now's the time, folks. Get them lined up for spring.
Well, that's the thing. It's because the backlog. That's what I mean. These dealerships are. I mean, the manufacturers are telling me is like we're 46 weeks out, on certain things. But thankfully, you guys have little pockets of the queue where, things are in right now or coming in the next couple of weeks, and then 10, 12 weeks, you can have a custom built one for you. I mean, where it's you pick a model that you really want, even if it's not in stock. But yeah, it's now pretty much to get it for spring camping. You pretty much do need, no matter who you're buying from, need to order it right now. I would definitely say, and you really want to, because what we're hearing with what's coming in January, price increases because of shipping prices have gone through the roof, building materials have gone through the roof.
Right.
A lot of the parts are made overseas and different things that are added in, and just been challenging for them as a manufacturer. So they're going to have to raise some prices. So, anyways, well, thank you guys. Here's Dustin's contact information, and we will put up. Just give him a call or an email. And the first, I wanted to put in chat here, the first couple people that type an email to Dustin that says the subject 500, we're going to give you a $500 credit towards your delivery if you're out of state. Ohio's free, but anybody out of state can get this. The first 2 people that do that and work out a sales agreement or deposit in the next couple of days. So if you're already figured out what you want or want to do it in a hurry to get ready for Christmas, Dustin can help you out with that. But just send an email over.
And honestly, guys, if there are any questions we didn't get to live here, shoot me an email as well. I'll be happy to answer them off air. Might take me here the rest of the afternoon, or might take over the weekend to get back to them, but I'll get to everybody I can as quickly as I can. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Dustin, for taking time out of your busy sales day.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. It was very helpful. So, and thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you on the flip side. Have a great Christmas and blessings. We'll see you.
Talk to you guys later.